Hello and welcome back to part 2 of our coil pebble bowl mold making demonstration. I should have had the name figured out before I started recording this, but whatevs, roll with me. It's 2020, right? So at this point, we should have something that looks like this, right? So we can see from the outside of my bowl where there's all the spirals set up, and it's all the way down the bottom. And I still have some spaces in there, and that's okay, because this step, we're gonna take care of that. So if you'll remember how I talked about before, where we wanna have that edge around the top of our bowl, that we're leaving clear. That's because we are going to put a large coil in there. Okay, so this coil, it's going to be a little bit thicker than the coils that we've been using. So coils that we have been using have been a little bit thinner than a pencil. Some of them might be even thinner than that for this project, and that's okay. But for this particular one, what we want to have is our coil should be about the thickness of our pinky. So our pinky thickness. If you are able to, depending on the size of your bowl and the opening around here, if you're able to make one long coil that can go all the way across the top, that's great. If you need to break it up into two different coils, that's fine too. Okay, our biggest thing though is that we just want to make sure that we have a nice and even coil along the top. Okay, so I have my bowl, I have my giant coil, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to gently lay this across the top of my bowl here. Now, I'm not blending anything yet. I have a little bit of water because some of my clay is getting a little cracked as it's starting to bend. Not a whole lot, and again, it's just like such a little tiny amount of clay, or water rather, that I'm using. To kind of keep that surface level cracking from happening too much. So I have my clay around the top of my bowl there. So I'm just going to pinch this piece off, which is that extra, and it can go off to the side. And now I'm going to use a little bit of water again on my fingertip and blend these two coils together here. I have my bowl here. So now I can see up along the lip where I have some bigger holes and gaps. So what I can do for this one here, I could fill that in with a really small little coil like I have right there. Just get a thin coil and get that filled in with a little disc. And then I'm going to start filling in the rest of my gaps. I have my bowl. I have my lip attached. Or laid on, I shouldn't say attached because it's not really attached. You can see how I don't have that many large gaps anywhere. I just now have these small little holes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my clay, and what I like to do is I like to roll out, again, it's going to be a little bit of a thicker coil, so about the thickness of our pinky again. And then I just start kind of pinching off little bits of that and rolling it into a small ball. And I find these holes and I just push the clay in. Now I'm not really smashing it down or trying to blend it or anything. Right now, I'm just rolling again little small balls, little pebbles, right? It's a coil and pebble bowl, and pushing that in. Again, I'm not really worried too much about like those little bits that you can see kind of right there on the bottom. That's okay for right now. I'm not really worried about that. I'm just trying to get some of these bigger holes filled in. So you can see as I'm sticking these in, especially around the lip here, I'm smashing it down some, and I'm letting it overlap on those coil pieces. That's what we want to be doing throughout this sort of gap filling step, is we don't want to leave these holes too exposed. We want to make sure that that clay is really getting on and into the edge so that it's actually coming through to the surface of our bowls. So down here you can't even see really where that that clay has been gapped in. The inside is all going to get blended together and is all going to be smooth together. So I'm not trying to keep any of this interior design nice and neat. This one, I actually kind of want it to be a little more blended. Again, I'm not doing a whole lot as far as blending and smashing things together right now on the inside. That step is coming. Okay, and I want to be careful as I'm working that I'm not pushing my lip up and over the edge of my pot. We always want to be working with the lip below the edge of the pot. I'm just smashing that in, making sure that my lip is staying below, the lip of the bowl that I'm creating is staying below the lip of my mold. I don't want it to overhang. That's going to create what's called an undercut, and that will not allow me to remove my bowl at the end, which would be really sad to put in all of this work and not be able to get it out of this shape. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I have most of my holes are stopped up. There's not any big or glaring pieces throughout the whole piece. Right, I have a couple of little cracks in there, and that's okay, because that's going to be handled on our next step. All right, so I now have my bowl, and it's pretty closed up with all of my coils and my little pebbles that I added. So you can see, even, let me move this plastic out of the way so we can see on the exterior. Right, you can see how there's like little bits of see-throughness, like we got a little piece right there and some right there, but there's not any big gaps. Like, ooh, there's that one right there. That was a good catch. Good eyes, everybody, good eyes. It's like Dora the Explorer right now, right? Do you see any holes? You do? That was my Dora the Explorer impersonation. So we can see here, right, we got some pretty good coverage on the bottom as well. If you're not working in a glass bowl, that's okay. You don't need to be able to see through it for that. You can definitely do the same thing and see the same thing from the inside. That's just harder to see on camera, so that's okay. So once I have everything here, it's now time to start blending. So the thing that we're going to do is we're going to start at the lip, and we're going to just kind of push this down. Okay, so again, I want to make sure that I'm blending this clay down and not pushing it up and over the lip of the actual mold. Okay, so the bowl that I'm making, I'm just keep pushing my clay down to cover that edge. Okay, so as I'm going, I'm just taking my thumb with a little bit of pressure and moving it down. This ain't pretty. This isn't going to be pretty for a minute. Right, we're just taking our time and working all of this clay down and into each other. Okay, this is very similar to how we blended our, how we were blending our coil vases. That whole same idea, right? Where we're blending all of this together to get it to become one solid bit of clay from the inside. Okay, so The first step again is going to be going all the way through around the lip and pushing and moving and blending all of that clay down. Now from here, I can start kind of taking this clay and blending it together and sort of pushing it together in whatever direction I can and whatever direction I want to. My goal is to also, as I'm moving this clay all around, is to keep my walls even. Okay, so I want my walls to be the same thickness. That's going to give me the most structural integrity. That's going to help me, that's going to help the pot fire as it gets heated up and things like that. I want it to have, if it's even clay throughout, that helps it dry together, and that helps eliminate cracking and structure issues. So we want to do that. Now, if we're blending together and we have a little piece, like I have one here, which I don't think is going to show up on camera for you guys, but on the inside here, there's like a little section that's getting a little bit thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of clay. And if you want to have just a couple of like really small size pebbles rolled up and ready to go to just grab as you're blending, you can do that. But I'm going to stick that piece in right there where I was having that thin spot, and then I'm going to blend it in and around that area. I don't want to add too much. I do want to make sure that I'm adding a good amount of pressure. It's important that this clay gets well blended together. I don't want to leave any air bubbles. Air bubbles equal explosions. Okay, because as air heats up, it's like when you heat up water in a tea kettle, it needs to escape, so it creates steam. Well, if there's an air bubble somewhere in your clay, as it heats up in the kiln, as that water heats up, it's gonna want a place to escape, and it will make a place to escape, which is usually out the side of one of your walls. That is also why we want to be careful about making our projects too thick. So our projects, clay should never be thicker than your thumb. So if it's thicker than your thumb, it needs to be thinned out. Okay, so here I have a smoothed out bowl. Now this still has a lot of texture on the inside. You can still see a lot of my smudge marks. There's some spots in here that I can feel and that I can see are too thin. So I'm gonna go back through with some of my little clay bits, and I'm gonna fill that in and get it blended up and together. But this is off to a pretty good start. So this is gonna be our, to get it all blended together. Now, once this is done, again, I want to be careful and aware of where my lip is. So I want to make sure that it's not coming over the edge of my bowl. Okay, so wherever my mold is, I should be able to freely have that edge clear. Okay, as this dries, it's going to shrink. So it will kind of pull in a little bit, which is great. We want it to do that, but we don't want to have it hanging over the edge. All right, so that's that. Once this is, once you have it smoothed, you can then just kind of keep working it with your finger and a little bit of pressure to get it smoothed out even more. So you can also now take your spoon. We could use this as a rib tool. If you have like an old gift card or something like that that you can use that as well. But we're going to use this the back end of the spoon, this side here, to kind of go through and use this as a blending and smoothing surface around our bowl. So by doing this here, it's going to help distribute the weight of the blending out of just the point of my thumb to hopefully give us a smoother, more even surface throughout. Okay, folks, that's it. Make good choices. Bye.